name's Linda Apps and I'm a yoga teacher. I've been running the Yoga Nook for almost 20 years. I started yoga because I was really keen on dancing. I loved dancing and I used to go to classes at the Sydney Dance Company. While I really had the joie de vivre, the spirit of the dancer, I was a bit inflexible, and he suggested that I go to yoga. Before I knew it, I was talking to my teacher and saying I wanted to go to India to study, and he said, well, why don't you start training as a yoga teacher here instead? So that's what I did. There's so many things I love about yoga. So that's also what happened at that time. My mum was sick with cancer and she died, and it sort of made me resolve to spend my life doing something that I love. It was a very exciting time to be doing Iyengar yoga then, because it was really new. All those teachers were going to India and Mr. Iyengar was coming to Australia, and there was a lot of energy. Everybody was very physically strong and fit, and the classes were quite strong, and it was exciting. And I also had my teacher, Peter Thompson, was very much a philosopher, so he did a lot of talking in class about the things that were interesting me and challenging me at the time, and it was probably his talking that made me keep coming back to classes. And then that sense that this was a tool that you could use to really craft your humanity, to become the best kind of human being that you can be. So I have so much appreciation for that, for my teachers and for Mr. Iyengar himself. What an incredible human being. So Mr. Iyengar was born in 1918 when the Spanish flu was sweeping across the world, and his mother actually had the flu when she was pregnant with him. So he was born as a really sickly child. His head was too big for his body, he could barely hold it up. He went through school sort of being made fun of, and then he, through his own yoga practice, he sort of rose above all that and got for himself first the physical health to overcome all these illnesses he had, like tuberculosis. So he got physically strong, and then he was able to explore more as he just kept practicing for his whole life, more the sort of psychological benefits, the emotional benefits, and the spiritual benefits. So he's done all this work that is now available there for us in the Iyengar yoga community to pass on to people who, anyone who's interested to come along and partake. The first time I went to Rishikesh because Mr. Iyengar was teaching there in a big tent next to the Ganges, and it had a chandelier in the top of the tent, and he taught us for, I think it was about 7 days. He would teach all day, and then in the night we'd get on these buses and go on these incredibly perilous mountain roads, where it's just dropping away beside you, and go to Deoprayag and dip in the Ganges. I dipped in the Ganges with Mr. Iyengar, holding on at the confluence of the rivers, holding on to the chain because the force of the water is so strong it could easily sweep you away. And he went in first, and then we would each dip in, really submerge yourself. The water's really clean up there, so you don't have to worry. And then come out, and there is Mr. Iyengar with the arti, with the fire, sort of blessing and smiling and laughing. So, fantastic experiences like that. And then yoga has sustained me through lots of things. So through the death of my mother, through then having a child later in life, and being able to do that, I think a lot of it because I was fit and had done yoga, and then having a relationship breakup and being a single parent, and so having to find the fortitude and the strength to do all that, I think really yoga helped me with that. The Yoga Nook is in Dulwich Hill. So when we first got here 20 years ago, there was only one coffee shop. And this was the only yoga school sort of west of Glebe. And since then, there's about 7 yoga schools just around me here now, and about 26 coffee shops. So Dulwich Hill has really blossomed, really bloomed into the great little village that it is now. And it's been good to be part of that. You know, we have people coming who are older men who are quite stiff, but if they're just prepared to join the beginners classes and stick at it, that's the thing. It's the consistency that makes the difference. If you're consistent, then change will happen. So anyone can come and everyone is welcome. And we have, you know, we love to see young people coming. And then if there's a class where there's a lot of young people, that's going to be more active, more dynamic. A class with older women, it's going to be tuned to those people. So whoever we get in the class, that's who we pitch the teaching to. And that's the advantage too, I think, of being an Iyengar yoga teacher, is we have got a depth of knowledge and a depth of practice and a depth of understanding that means that we can do that. And that's what's interesting as a teacher, you know, how do you turn people on to it? How do you introduce them to everything that it has to offer? How do you get them excited about it? How do you get them wanting to develop their own yoga practice? And how do you really help people connect to their bodies? Iyengar yoga is just so comprehensive. It incorporates that whole spectrum of why people might want to do yoga, whether it's just for a physical benefit, mental, emotional, or as a spiritual journey. Or a spiritual, actually as a spiritual evolution. I'm not a big fan of the word journey, but it's a spiritual evolution, which is kind of the evolution of what it is to be a human being. You know, what it is. Prashant Iyengar, who's Mr. Iyengar's son, says yoga starts when we ask ourselves, who am I and why am I here? So it's those big questions that we're looking at ultimately in yoga. And so things as they are now, of course, we're in COVID times, so we are running classes online, so via Zoom, and the recordings are available, and the community has come along with us in a really supportive way in the past, where everybody's now sort of pretty well set up to do their yoga at home, and they just tune in and away we all go together. So that's working really well, but we're all looking forward to when we can be back face to face.